Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. That always makes me feel better when I hear back from the audience. My name is Agnes He. I'm the director of the Center for Multilingual and Intercultural Communication. And welcome to our distinguished lecture today by Professor Elana Shohamy from Tel Aviv University, Israel. Let me say a few words about our distinguished speaker. Professor Shohamy received her PhD from the University of Minnesota and did her postdoctoral work at Stanford University, and she's now Professor of Language Education at the School of Education, Tel Aviv University in Israel. She works in an amazingly diverse range of fields, including language testing, and this is where she focuses on the power and the misuses of tests in education and society. And most recently, her work has been focused on multilingual testing. She also works in the area of language policy, where she addresses the mechanisms used for creating de facto policies that could penalize immigrants and minority groups. And I think a very exciting recent work she's doing is something abbreviated as LL, which is a linguistic landscape. And that really refers to languages displayed in public spaces. And this is where Elana really looks at language as one of the many semiotic systems that we inhabit, and look at the consequences and the impact on our lives as both members of the societies as well as language learners. She's the author of numerous work. Her books include The Languages of Israel, Policy, Ideology, and Practice, The Power of Tests, A Critical Perspective of the Uses of Language Tests, Language Policy, Hidden Agendas and New Approaches, and Linguistic Landscape, Expanding the Scenery, and more recently, Linguistic Landscape in the City. She's the editor of the journal Language Policy, and she's also the winner of the 2010 Lifetime Achievement Award granted by the International Language Testing Association in Cambridge, UK. I actually checked out the video of your acceptance speech. It was great. Professor Shohamy is the author of over 50 articles, over 100 book chapters. I have no idea how she found the time to write. Author of 5 books and editor of 5 books, and she has taught and lectured literally all over the world. Now, I have long admired her work, but it's only relatively recently that I've got to know her personally. And I've been very touched by her personal warmth as well as her intellectual energy. So I'm very honored and grateful that she accepted our invitation to come to Stony Brook to speak to us. And she's going to give 2 talks during her stay here. Today she's going to speak on linguistic landscape, and tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. at the MIC Center she's going to speak on multilingual testing. So please join me in welcoming Professor Elana Shohamy.
Okay, so thank you all for inviting me, and I'm happy to be here. I see some familiar faces. Dorit I've known for many years, but never knew what your home was and where your home. I knew the name, but not what it means. So it's very nice to be on this campus. And
please use the mic.
The mic
acoustics here
is not very good. Okay, now it's better? Yes. Okay, thanks. Okay, so what I'll talk about is okay, so what I'll talk about is really what I do now, which let's say this is where my obsession is. The linguistic landscape, if you start doing it, it's kind of, you gain another eye. And with another eye, you're able to see things that you haven't seen before. And once you get to see it, you know, you kind of lose it all, and everything is being viewed through linguistic landscape. And obviously, you take your camera everywhere and record everything. And the question that I'm trying to talk about today is how do you make sense of all that? I mean, you see these things, and how do you make sense? So, well, first of all, for those of you, I know there are different levels here. Some people know what linguistic landscape is, some people don't know. So here, this is what we're talking about, that's all. You know, we started with something. Can you see, I think the lighting is making, there's a possibility to turn off maybe just the light on the screen, because I see that it's very, it's not clear enough as it usually should be. Oh, maybe? No? Oh, that's too dark?
No, it's good.
It's good? You like the dark? I don't know.
Darker?
Darker, yeah.
I don't have anything in between, sorry.
The backlight, yeah. This is good, it's so much better, yeah.
Switch off the lights completely, speaker will not be visible in camera.
So can we see from the back? Can we see the slides from the back? Is that all right?
This is not, okay, anyway, we,
Otherwise, you won't be,
because everything is,
you won't be visible in camera if you switch off the lights.
I see, okay.
Just like that?
But of course,
But that's not good for the camera.
The camera doesn't work.
So that's why, because they want to see you.
Ah, okay,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
It'll be,
Kind of, okay, whatever. What can we do? And now that's even worse.
Yeah, this is better.
This is better, I think, yeah? Okay, so I see it so well. If you want to join me here, you can say it's so beautiful here. So anyway, so we're talking about, this is what linguistic landscapes. I'll give you a short tour of what it is. So what you see is language and public space, and this is what we talk about when we talk about linguistic landscape. So you see a top sign that says, driver, please drive slowly, and there's a blockade in front of you, only in Hebrew, but then you see, and our Arabs there, English speakers, still it's only in Hebrew, and it's a danger, what we call a danger sign. And then we see a sign underneath that says 3 languages, Hebrew, Arabic, and English, and all it is like information about when the parliament is open. So that's all. And then you see the Pope came to Israel in 1990, and you see everything is only in Hebrew and in Arabic, because the idea is that Jews don't need, Arabic and English, sorry, because like Jews don't need to see the Pope, okay, because they're associated with Hebrew, all right? And you see signs like this, you see signs like this, you see signs like this. On top you see the Jaffa Street, and then there's Arabic in between the English and the Hebrew, the top one, for those of you who don't know what Hebrew and Arabic look like. So you see in the middle, you see Arabic, and this is by the Supreme Court decision that every sign in Israel that is in mixed cities where Jews and Arabs live must by law include also Arabic. This is why you see the middle in Arabic. And in many places you see, obviously, because of the conflict in Israel between Arabs and Jews, you see many times the Arabs is being erased. I have a sign like this. So you see this, which is all in Arabic, a sign in an Arab town. They don't even put one word in Hebrew. They don't feel the need. I think I showed you this one. Am I going back? Okay. So basically it seems like a mess, right? There's nothing. You just go from one place to another, you take a picture, every store, every sign, and you think at the beginning that there's no order in the chaos. But in fact, what we're finding out that within this chaotic city or neighborhood or whatever, and you'll see examples later, there's lots of order there. And it's not enough, of course, to look at one side, but if you start working on it and doing some statistics, you find out that there's lots of systematic, you see, it's very systematic. But what I showed you now really represents what we talked about linguistic landscape in the early days. The field, I would say, started with the first publications in 2006. So we're talking about a very young field that started looking on the public space and taking pictures of the public spaces. And it seems like obvious, how come the public space is so, how come the public space was so ignored when there's so much language in the public space? How come we working in applied linguistics or in second language acquisition, we never thought, or in immigration, we never thought that language beyond what people speak counts, that it does something to all of us, okay? But in fact, we were kind of trained to ignore it in many ways. And when I teach my courses in linguistic landscape, one of the comments I always hear from students is, wow, how come I never looked at it before? Because in a way we're focused in schools on textbooks, and with textbooks we study the textbook as if the world has nothing to do with us. But the world, especially in places like New York City or Israel, in many places, is very multilingual, and our languages all over. And our language, the first thing I noticed when I came to this building is that, to this campus, that every building has a name like humanities, or social science, or whatever. In our case, you don't see that. You usually have names of buildings are usually the donators of the building. So like you have Hong, the person who contributed to this building. So this is usually what I see, but to see a word like humanities, that's kind of, wow, that's great, this is new, because usually in this world we compliment and we have to always show gratitude to those who gave the money. This is how it works in most universities in the world. So you start paying attention to it and you start asking why. What's behind it? Why is Hebrew, Arabic, and why is Arabic and English only the languages when the Pope arrives? So every time you can find a reason why this is happening, because basically people do it. Science don't just get there from nothing. Okay? So you see here more, you see three languages. Why is the three languages? Is it because people obeyed the Supreme Court decision, or people want clients who are Jews and therefore they say put it in Hebrew, this is in an Arab town, and so on. But I wanted to emphasize that also, and to say that in the past few years, people have moved away from language only. Or in other words, very early in the day we found out that to look at the public space just through language will be very, very narrow. So I want to explain to you that this is what we do today when we study linguistic landscape. Not all of us, but many. So for example, tattoos. Tattoos is linguistic landscape in the public space written on the body. And the bodies oftentimes are exposed and are public. So we're looking even and with drawings like this, and there are meaning. This is in South Africa, and people who live in South Africa would know it can give you a whole meaning of this drawing. Or you see this is in Colombia. What is the word wow? Basically it's to sell jeans, but in fact it's like to promote, in the background is to promote breast augmentation, which is big in Colombia. And we have a whole study on that and how the public space is there to really push this kind of business of plastic surgery, okay, of breasts and other parts. But you see also tents. I don't know if you have it here. I don't think you had the Occupy movements here in Long Island, but I'm sure you know about the Occupy movements, kind of Occupy Wall Street. So here you see tents. Tents is also a language. This is what we're trying to explain, that it's not just a word, there's no word specifically, but tents become a communicator. Or you see something like this, which I'll explain later. Or you see a haircut is also some kind of language in public space, and we are now looking more and more calling it language. More tattoos and language. You see language and tattoos. You see this people can be linguistic landscape as well. Okay? This is the demand to have more mosques in Paris a few years ago. This is in this area, you see this woman and many like her, and you know exactly that this area is built of refugees live there, asylum seekers from Africa and so on. Okay, so what are some of the theories behind it? So that's just an introduction. So basically we talk about language in broader sense, in public spaces. It's not enough to look at words. Signs, street names, buildings, brochures, pamphlet, ads, directions, announcements, soundscapes. Like we said something, you hear, you know, soundscape, you know what I mean, that you go to markets. And what do you hear before you do anything? You hear the noise of the market. People are screaming, advertising their products and so on. So we talk a lot about soundscapes, singing in the public space, speeches, images, pictures, smells. There's a paper now for the new journal that's coming out in Linguistic Landscape about smellscapes. And the person who did the study about in Sydney, Australia, went to the market, and the market, he looked at the markets and saw how smells can define the places. There are kind of language that communicates to people about what this is and who lives there and what language they speak and so on. And I'm sure you know what I mean. Sirens, cell phone conversations, obviously, buildings, people, and much more. So what we see is from just simple signs, what we begin to see is like even buildings are signs out to linguistic landscape, people, and so on. So from words to images to graffiti, sounds, but it's not, doesn't mean that we don't take into account words, but it means that words are not the only thing in the public space that we notice. Bodies, and it's all these semiotic things which people are thinking about even in linguistics. Bodies, clothes, smells, movements, dance, and the whole thing that we call multimodality. A variety of modalities exist in the public space. And therefore we can say the linguistic landscape expands language. And personally and theoretically, I believe that the most important contribution of linguistic landscape is that it opens our vision and our brains to look at language in a broader way than just words. And I think multimodality touches it, because looking at words alone is not complete. So here, look what we see. We see one sign, the one I showed you at the beginning. So you see people who looking at the sign, history of the place, the space, where is it located, the building, how the architecture of the building, you see here architecture, and of course you see the languages. And if you go down below, you see something which is only in Hebrew here. It's a sign, because it also happens to be a police station. And then you see the three languages here, which somehow exist. So what is the three languages? Is it, why are they there? And how do they relate to history and architecture, people who live there and so on? So I think this is really captures the whole idea that when you look at something, it's not, the word is nothing. It's like not nothing, but it's like, it's the most basic things. But there are so many, in order to understand the world, I have to go to a much broader understanding of the scape. So while language in public space seems random, this is what I just said, it's actually not. It's very systematic and anchored in theories of politics, so it relates to politics. Who makes decisions about policy? Why does the Supreme Court say, I want three languages? Economics, geography, law, it connects to all these fields. Linguistics, of course, how words changes with time, migration, how migrants in certain areas decide to define the place in their language, urbanism, education, and you'll see examples of that, and so on. Justice and power, and this is where I'm more interested in. Now, what about spaces, linguistic landscape? I'll run fast through these because I'm afraid I won't be able to cover the million studies I plan to show you still. So basically we call spaces and places. The spaces are empty, but places are those that kind of make the space turn into a place. How do they do that? Few streets, homes, cities, markets, neighborhoods, schools, graffiti, shopping center, website, or even this hall. Think of this hall after we're done with the talk. It will be empty. It will be a space with nothing, maybe chairs, and that's all. And it's always very interesting when you live in a house and you move and you take away all the furniture. All of a sudden, it's just a space. It's not a place anymore. So I think this is what we talk about when we talk about language or other features in the space. But basically, we call it landscape person-made. We make it. So the whole idea of people is very central, and I want to tell you that the early era of linguistic landscape, people didn't look at people, or researchers didn't look at people. They looked at science per se, which of course is so narrow. So here, people are those who hang the signs, display posters. This is what people do. Or those who read. We go around and we read, and we see all these things. Or we ignore them. People are always those who are representative of institutions, those that made the decision to call this building humanities, or not to call it like that. They are also the observers who read, contest, critique. So we are there to, and I see as activists, and to oftentimes protest against unjust spaces, which I'll show you in a minute. But you can see how people read. People are an important part of this. Otherwise, it's nothing. Who owns a public space? That's very interesting for me, and it touches lots of issues that come up about graffiti, who has the right to write in the public space, who owns a public space, and so on. So basically we know that people, the things, the bodies that own the public spaces are institutions and corporations, and they dominate the public space. And LL, linguistic landscape, becomes a tool for domination. So if you see the word institution, or you see the word, another word, you know that somebody made a decision there, and they can make the decision. I cannot make the decision, and nobody here, probably. Some high-level institutions made this decision. They didn't ask us if it's good or bad. Foucault talks about, through geography, we create unfair, oppressive domination, racism, colonialization, contestations, and struggle. How can we make the space more just? Neighborhoods, towns, this is one of the questions. Not everybody asks, but this is my focus. How can we practice public spaces in their discourse more inclusive, that everybody will be part, or more people will be part? So when we say everything is English, the minute you get there, you say, but Hebrew doesn't belong, or Arabic doesn't belong, or Spanish doesn't belong, or me as a Spanish speaker, I don't belong. And when I go to a place in the Lower East Side and I see some words in Hebrew, I say, oh, they're inviting me. I'm welcomed in this place. So there's something about the language there that you know when you're not included, you're excluded really, but there are ways to make it more welcomed. And I think one of the talks, one of the things I'm sure that is a big topic in the multilingual sector is how to make spaces more multilingual. And sometimes it's not as difficult more than just putting signs in a number of languages according to the people who visit there. Okay. So, moreover, in my view, I think it's a responsibility of people to become more aware and create spaces that represent more people. So let's look at this. For example, this is a story of this Occupy movement that we had in Tel Aviv. So what you see, people just decided to occupy the space. The space is ours. And we're talking about a very posh area, and one day they came with all the tents, and they said, this area is ours. The situation is bad, we have to contest, we have to protest, and this is what they did. And this went on for 3 months. And then the police came, the city of Tel Aviv came and dismantled everything. That's it. It becomes a space again, another place. This is what it is now. A year later, they tried to come again. The police was already there. No way you can do it now. No way. Okay? So here you see this kind of contestations. People, in a way, now see the space as a place that they have to connect. And specifically, in my case, I'm talking more about the language issue here, the multilingualism here in the public space, but everything else. Okay. Okay, the Occupy movement, there's a very nice book that came out by Luisa Martin Rojo about the Occupy movement, very interesting book looking at linguistic multilingualism in the public space. You see here how Jerusalem Arabic gets erased. So you see how contested it is. This is the middle, and it says here, no Arabs, no suicide attacks. You see how people who want to put their identity in Russian can't do it, so they put a little sign on top. But basically they say, we speak Russian here, or we sell non-kosher food, or whatever. The Jewish state, the sign that said the Jewish state, where there are many people who are not Jews who live there. It is an Arab town. You see a way of contesting by putting two flags of Israel, not just one, but two. And the word is the telecommunication company. It's in an Arab town. They put it in Hebrew only, in big letters. So you see how language here serves as for domination and for showing who is in charge, who is in power. This is an emergency room. We just talked about my mother was in the hospital, and I remember seeing that. They say emergency room in Hebrew only. Now the person who took care of her and many others in Israel are women from the Philippines, from Nepal and so on, who know English and can read, but she has no clue once she gets to the hospital where to go. You see words like shelter or emergency exit, nothing at Haifa University. There are many Arab students, nothing. Okay, this is about fish that are disappearing. This is about graffiti, about a town that it said it was graffiti on something that says, here used to be a Palestinian city that got destroyed. So you see a whole, now you see in another situation also this kind of, let's put Arabic in public space because people are protesting in that way. That's in Tel Aviv airport, people tell you, no, you should know, abroad, you are representing the country, you should represent us with respect. So you see how this sign kind of put responsibility on you representing your country. This is my little granddaughter, and this is where the sign says, people who are refusing to go, conscientious objectors, they should be released. Then there's somebody next to it who says, no. So you see the whole idea how this kind of contestation takes some role in terms of dialoguing through language. And what I do with her, we go around with Alma and I show her, and she asks me, what is this? This is difficult to get. So I have to explain to her, some people don't want to go to the military, some people want to, and this, so why the law? And I said, sometimes it's very contested, people, don't agree. Why don't they agree? So the point that we're making here is about the tip of the iceberg, that languages of public space oftentimes are just like a tip of an iceberg, that you can go on deeper and deeper and explain culture for those of you who teach languages, teach culture of the existing place. Okay, this is during the last war, okay, longer story there. Laser graffiti, just in case you didn't know what it was, you just go with a little machine and you laser, you project on buildings, and you see the bicycle here on the bottom part, and then policeman comes and you just put it on the bike and disappear. So that's very, okay, and virtual spaces and so on. Okay, so what do we do in research? I want to just kind of briefly go through some of the studies that we cover in this field. Okay. We look at these public spaces and we try to see, what do we see? What are the patterns that we can find? So I'll give you one example. These are some of the topics we cover. You can read it for yourself. Immigration, cities, ideologies, bodies, tourist sites, and so on. Okay. I want to show you something about language policy because this is in the title. Language policy, for those of you who are not familiar with the field, we talk basically, and where language policy used to be something that comes from the top down. Today we talk about language policy more as reflecting. In other words, if you have people who speak Spanish, it's our obligation to put Spanish in public spaces. The idea of linguistic language policy, the way we see it now, is engaged language policy. We don't talk about it anymore as top-down policies. So you see how I'm connecting it to the rest. And we're talking about language policy. It's not just done by nations anymore. It's done by institutions, by hospitals, by universities, by individuals, by family. A family that decides that everything in their home will be in English or in Hebrew or in any other language. So policy of language takes place in many places, and I can give you much more information about it another time. Okay, but here we want to show is the LL expands language policy, and this is what I'll try to say. So this is a short study, but what I want to show you, it's a study that I did years ago when Hebrew was revived. And one of the things in the Hebrew, for those of you who don't know, Hebrew had been a language that had not been used as an oral language for hundreds of years before, if not thousands almost. And it was always a written language. And when people started coming to Israel, the Zionist movement, the idea was to revive Hebrew and make it a spoken language, which it is today. So I looked very much at the methods that they use in order to do it. So look at number 3. Public signs were very important. Let's put them all in Hebrew. Changing foreign names to Hebrew. My last name is Shohamy, but actually Shohamy means Finkelstein. But it was important for my ex-father-in-law to have the name Shohamy from Finkelstein, and he put it in the name a Hebrew name. So you were asked to do it. You were asked to do business tags and so on. And if you didn't do that, if you didn't do it, these kids will go around. You can see we recruited young people in Haifa to check the number. So looking at the signs and counting the signs that were in Hebrew or not in Hebrew was one of the methods. Look, 128 signs need corrections. 21 signs did not include Hebrew. What I'm trying to show here is that even in the 30s, in revival of language in public space was always something that people who did propaganda, even Hitler, a lot of that was about public spaces. And public spaces count, because the idea is that we follow public spaces, and this kind of affects what we think and what we do. So here we're conducting trials. We did for people who didn't use the Hebrew. And they go through, this is like directly from those archives. So basically the idea here, linguistic landscape was used as a tool to change behavior of people. So I want you to see how important this thing is, to create images of a new de facto linguistic reality, to mark the space in the desired language. And I move now to the assumption. The assumption is visibility in public space will affect our use. And people who work in marketing, they've known it for a long time. Just put any picture of a dress, a body, clothes, on public signs, and it does something to our brain. We think this is in. We think we are out. We don't have that. We don't have the G4 on and you see this huge sign G4, you feel right away you're behind. So these things have effect on what we think. Okay, you see even like that. Hebrew goes, for the revival, Hebrew goes to summer. All the other languages should be demolished. The languages here, that's or Hebrew should kill all the other languages. So that's these kind of things you could see in the public spaces. So basically in this study, and that's all these are published studies, this is why I'm not going to talk about them very carefully, and I can leave you, of course, the PowerPoint and Agnes, okay? So here, okay, so you see design picture of LL items. What we did is we documented all the signs in 6 or 7 cities in Israel. You see one what we call top down, those are signs that are given by the government, versus bottom up, where people decide to name their streets, their stores. So what I want to show you, out of this chaotic situation, you can come up with something which is very unchaotic. And if you look on the left where it says Jewish areas, we see most of the languages will be the brown on the left, which is Hebrew, and English as much as Hebrew. A little bit less. But you look at Arabic, which is in the middle, although it's an official language in Israel, in Jewish areas you won't see that at all, or you see very little. So here's a situation where out of the whole city, chaotic city, we take one and we can see patterns. You look at the Palestinian Jew, this is what we call Israeli Arab, you see Arabic, Hebrew, and hardly any English. So, okay, you go to an area, East Jerusalem, which is partly occupied. I don't want to go into the depth of these issues, but you see it's mostly Arabic, English, and hardly any Hebrew. So what I'm trying to encourage you here, if you want to do studies like this, the idea is to go with the camera, to count sign by sign, like we did here, and find out what the language situation is, and what are the languages used. But they're not necessarily languages which are used, but people actually use them. But what we call here is a symbolic representation, construction in public space. That means people decide to put a sign in that language. It doesn't mean that they even use this language, or even know the language. So why do they put it? Why would they put an English sign? Did I catch you off guard? Anybody? Why would somebody put an English sign? Yes?
That they're saying, hey, rest of the world,
we are associated with English. Or to prestige. Every time you want to put something in English, people will say, oh, that's a good product. Same thing even in the Arab area. Sometimes they put Hebrew, although they don't like the Hebrew, but they put it Hebrew because, Hebrew is considered a higher language and therefore will buy the product. Yes?
Like you said previously, like if you were to add English, you would make those who are English feel more welcome in the area.
I could speak louder.
Like if you were to include English in mostly Hebrew-speaking area, you would also welcome the English.
Yes.
Well.
Yeah, but welcome English, which is a power language, is even more than that. It means that we are welcoming the West. Even deeper, I would say, putting English versus putting Arabic. There's a person where I go and he has signs, and I say sometimes, why don't you put a sign, it's a beauty parlor, why don't you put the sign in Arabic? I said, I don't want to put Arabic. If I put the sign in Arabic, nobody will come to my beauty parlor. So it has to do with the prestige of the people has to do with the prestige of the language. And it has to do with business, which has to do with what we call rational choice. So I wanted to give an explanation for that, but I think I'll skip that and you can read it in the article. But what I want to show here is a new way, that LL is a new way to measure language. LL is not the same as language proficiency. You can know a language but not decide not to put it on, and vice versa. You may not know English at all, but you put it, okay? You may know Arabic, but not put Arabic. Because like I just said, it will affect badly my business. So this is why we call it symbolic representation of the space. And for us as researchers, the most important thing was to show that linguistic landscape is not the same as what people speak. You see, so that's another dimension of language that we have ignored. But really, this is a language that it's a way to look at the space is important. It gives you different information about this landscape. It may at one point say, I see so much French here, I better learn French. Or even with Arabic, you say, maybe it's time I learn Arabic. So these kind of things can happen. And people are studying the effect of that. Okay? And, top-down policy and bottom-up are not the same. What governments decide is not what people put as signs. And in some places, as Quebec, there's only top-down, right? You cannot put bottom-up. In Quebec, you're not allowed to. Even in Israel, in certain places, you're not allowed to put. The government makes very, very strict decisions about it, about the public space. Okay, I want to show you another study, which has to do with what we call multimodality. And this is what this study showed us right from the beginning, that it's not enough to look at language in this site. Basically, look, this has to do with the geographical location, the photographs, the written text, the number of languages. So many things are happening in the space. And this is what brought many of us to look at what I call phase 2 of linguistic landscape, which is looking at the broader sense of of the signs. So how can we ignore a picture like that if we want to study the space? How can you ignore the baby that is used? And we see lots in our work, lots of situations where children, babies are being used for all kinds of reasons, for propaganda many times. How can you ignore the fact that the tourist area, we see McDonald's here and Kentucky Fried Chicken? Or intertextuality. This is really the sign of this situation, which is the illegal migration of Jews to Israel in the 40s. But this is here, look what's happening on the right. These are Somali and people from Eritrea who come to Israel illegally because they're not Jews, and Israel kicks them out. So intertextuality, you can use the same symbols that you used many years ago in this situation. So, lots of things. What I want to show you, we study this and we come up with conclusions. Like Israelis all in Hebrew, stay here, Jewish tourists come and join us. So we see, I don't know, it's a longer story to explain what Jewish English is, but it has a lot to do with the kind of English that Jews use every time. So, out of Israel. So anyway, there's a message there about what the site wanted to say. Okay, so basically broadening language policy, we cannot just look at language, we have to look at text and images and location and environment and people in practice, time and ideology. Now I want to show you, and I'll go through it very fast, but basically I'll tell you what it's about. It's about, we have to finish what, at 12:30?
12:45.
At 12:45. Oh, okay, great. Okay, wow, that's good. So basically what I want to show you, this is another way of looking at linguistic landscape, and that's what Agnes mentioned, the linguistic landscape in the city. So I want to show you, this is what 100 years to Tel Aviv, centennial, and the city gets totally redecorated. You see new designs of writing of names of streets. You see, remember I told you that they had to put Arabic, there are new signs with no Arabic. And more. Poems and songs in public space. Images and script. The municipality did it for the 100 years, so they put whatever they felt like they wanted to put. Hebrew almost everywhere. Now, what we know is a homogeneous story is introduced via a variety of linguistic landscape devices in a top-down manner. The story is very ideological. The signs are instrumental for that purpose. So you put signs when it's a special event, centennial, jubilee, or whatever, birthday, and everything gets redefined. But the question we were asking are, but where are the others? And once we started looking, how come people don't react? What do you mean? They just sit around and accept this kind of redefinition of the city? So we found signs everywhere. For example, one sign, 100 years to Tel Aviv, who is not being counted? In other words, count us, where are we in this? Or somebody remapping the streets in Tel Aviv in Arabic. Or old towns that used to be there before the state of Israel, Arab towns. So they put new maps with Arab towns of that era. Only in Hebrew and English, in Arabic. Exhibitions everywhere. Come study me. I have a story to tell you of being unincluded. So who is this group? I don't know, but there were lots of groups that made it their own ideology to undo the things that were actually done by the city. Tours, narrating. He's telling, I went on one of those tours, people are telling their stories. And what I'm trying to show you here, that linguistic landscape is not just those little signs, but sometimes there are here graffiti on other signs. Here used to be this village. Films, Arabic not included and no signs. So here, people, what they do, they put it signs in very posh areas, all of a sudden they put Arabic there. In the middle of the night they did it, you wake up in the morning and all those stores are decorated in Arabic. Okay, so the city is not a homogeneous entity, and for those voices, it is about dismantling the homogeneous message given the complexity of the city, each group according to its agendas. And in order to do that, and this is again expanding the idea of linguistic landscape, signs in multiple languages, yes, they protest with these things. Pictures, graffiti, photos, exhibits, personal biographies, oral narratives, films, public lectures, talkbacks, virtual spaces. What we're claiming here, that in fact this is also linguistic landscape, because these things take place in the public space. So I'm trying to show you very much that we're expanding the notion of what it means in public space and what it means language in public space, or languages in public space, and we add these other things. Because if you think about linguistic landscape, it's always owned by the city. What about the people? And the people have many more choices, such as graffiti. Okay? As long as these things are, okay. So through these things, language policy should focus on cities and not on nations. Linguistic landscape is a useful tool to point at linguistic language policy injustices and to demand inclusion, the need to make LP more inclusive, and so on. Now I want to show also very briefly something about neighborhoods. So now we don't talk about cities anymore, especially after the study where people reacted against this kind of top-down. So we started looking at neighborhoods, and there are two neighborhoods I want you, I mean, there's so many words for neighborhoods, but here are some, for example. And also it's very interesting how the city will define the neighborhoods, zones or whatever. And people are very interested in neighborhoods, and especially in the borders of neighborhood. When we move, like think about in New York, the point of Chinatown to Little Italy. Okay, so you see, it's very interesting there because you have even more multilingual than what you see in each one of the areas. So these are the two areas. One is the new central station, and I want to show you what you see in the central station, and you can see that it doesn't look like Israel at all. You hardly see any Hebrew. It looks like Africa. Weddings, oh, again. Okay, so what we see in the immigrant neighborhood, this is very interesting, what I call here the yellow congruence between humans and language representation in the space. In immigrant neighborhoods, there is multilingualism which addresses a diversity of languages and people. These are vibrant, dynamic, everyday practices. Language reacts to life practices, restaurants, walking, talking, marrying, wedding ceremonies, and not to explicit policies except in institutions. So in this multilingual center that you created, I think one of the things to look at neighborhoods and to look how people create this kind of on hand, what they need most in terms of languages. And that neighborhood is even more interesting now because there used to be all those people before, especially different groups. Now many of them were expelled. And the only people who are left in that area are people who come from Eritrea and they speak Tigrinya, and some from Sudan who speak Arabic. And what you see is totally different languages in the public space because it's nothing to do with ideology. I mean, the city doesn't even care about what language they will have because they don't want them there. They want to kick them out. But the people themselves create this kind of whatever is practical and useful for them. So that's kind of very interesting situation, and I think this is why there are a number of studies now. People are looking, there's a huge study now taking place in 4 cities in England about the languages of multilingualism in the city, in those cities that have lots of immigrants. There's a study now going on in New York that people are studying New York City. So I think these kind of focus on these kind of studies is very important if you want to really look at multilingualism, and the public space is a very good place to do it. I will skip this next one, which is really interesting though. But in Jaffa, there are lots of Arabs living there, but you see sign-wise, they don't put many Arabic signs. Look, mostly Hebrew, and that relates to what we said before. It's not just the welcoming. Oh, Hebrew is a good language, it will attract, and we should do it. Arabs will do the same thing. And I'll connect it in a minute to the next study. Okay, one of the things, so we interviewed a number of people from this area, Ajami, and one of the things they said, we said, what about linguistic landscape? We said, we don't care about linguistic landscape. We only care about buildings. For us, buildings is like linguistic landscape. And then they go through something like this. Okay, why can't we live together? Or my geographical is the area where I live, I have street identity. From this road that includes 3 houses, I can see the old house where my grandfather used to live in before 1948. And you see another person who says, we are being bought by the French immigrants who like this location. So for them, language in public space is not important at all. What really is important for them are bigger things. I don't like to say that something is bigger than language, but it seems like in this case. So, okay, so that's kind of what, and basically what we saw is like 2 neighborhoods, totally different linguistic landscapes. In one place it was very practical in the central station, and in Ajami, not important about language is not important, but their identity, conflicts, and other things. So it kind of shows that the linguistic landscape may be important, but it's not all. But it can also tell us that even buildings can be called linguistic landscape, because it's some kind of language and public space. There's a story there, who took the houses, who used to live there, and so on. Okay. Now, what I want to show you is this last study, which I think is kind of fun, because this is like Arab students in the same town in Jaffa. And the students in 11th grade were asked to just take cameras and walk around the city of Jaffa and take 10 pictures and report what they, analyze the 10 pictures and report what they saw. We did it for Jewish students and Arabs, but I'll talk only about the Arabs now. And basically, well, the Arabs were disappointed. What they see is that they thought Arabic would be a majority language, but it's not. This is Jaffa. They thought it's their own place, you know, it should be Arabic. No. And they get very angry. And even the student who did the study got angry. She thought she didn't think this would be the result. So here are some of the things that people say. So you see, don't litter. And that's only in Hebrew. So she says, environment, it's not related to Arabic? And I asked myself, why is English written before Arabic? Arabic is the second official language. These are all Arab students saying it. Isn't that so? And I live in a city where all inhabitants are Muslim Arabs, all Arab speakers. If Hebrew and English appear on the sign, at least they should add Arabic for the Arab. So what you see is like once they take the pictures, and I think this is very important. I think this study is important because students themselves get engaged with the data. They take the pictures. And I think it's a fantastic activity to do with your classes, and there's in Columbia University, in the language departments they do, especially in the Spanish, they are all engaged in linguistic landscape of New York City now, and they take pictures and they go to communities and they look at variety of languages, and from there they deduce the kind of policies or the kind of thing that should be taken care of. Okay. So I looked from all 10 signs. I analyzed this was the only restaurant which had Hebrew, which was had in Arabic and in Hebrew. And look at this one. Okay, so they see it very much as real, discrimination, and they blame their own parents. It's not that they go and they say, look what's happening to us as a group. Because my father wants to make money, he will put the sign in Hebrew and he will forget his group. So in a way, it's kind of a very sad conclusion what happens, but they get angry and they go back to their parents and they talk to them about it. Even Arabs, you know what he says, even Arabs slowly began to think that Hebrew was more beautiful and better, and sometimes they were ashamed of Arabic. Okay, and there's more to say about it. We are proud to be Arab, so why don't you show all the world that you are proud Arab? But you see, it's just the experience of languages in public space already. Their languages already gives some reaction. And I think, why am I saying I think it's an important study? Because it shows you that kids and grown-ups, by getting engaged, they can actually get to some conclusions and be more aware of society and what happens in society, something they haven't noticed before. And I think this is why it's important, and you see, like, I teach a course for principals, for people who are going to be principals in schools, school principals, and one of the things we ask them to do is this principal, to come to the first class. The course is called language policy. They have no clue about languages. But I was asked to do this course. So the first thing they do is, I tell them for next week, you will have to take pictures of anything in your neighborhood, in another place, wherever you want, 10 or 20 pictures, and give a presentation about it in terms of justice, inclusion, neoliberalism, or whatever. They come back after a week, and you cannot imagine how, just from working with the data, I asked them to read like one article, but they come back after that so knowledgeable about language and about awareness of language in the public space. So I think this is why it's important. By the way, for the Jewish kids in this study, didn't make much of a difference because the Jewish kids are monolinguals, and for them it doesn't make a difference as much. Okay, let me just conclude by saying active engagement with LL data increases language awareness of children, has an impact on attitudes, and lead to LL activism. Okay? Broadening language policy, youth and adults, especially educationalist principles, should become aware of language in the public space as arena they own and can have input into it. They should take active role in designing language policy that is more just. A school, like I work with a school that has lots of immigrants, mostly asylum seekers and refugees, and they don't have anything in the languages of the refugees in the school. The Bialik goes in school. And now they decided to change it and start decorating the school with a variety of languages in order to show that the school will represent the community. Okay, the implications. Once we understand the richness of LL repertoire, we see that language policy as of now is simplistic and narrow. When we talk about language policy, we talk about number of languages, 3 languages, 2 languages. That's not the story here. It's not just about languages that we should study. It's broader. LL research opens our eyes, or rather add new eyes, to see the complexities and potential of a larger repertoire of languages and spaces, and people for a broader and deeper understanding of societies and hence language policy. The research and practices in LP, language policy, should move into those directions, giving power to people to participate and transform languages into broader scopes and spaces. And I think what we're talking about here is like linguistic landscape should be a very important part of language policy. Which languages should be allowed, which languages should encourage to participate in the public space. And if we are talking about multilingual policies, which people are nowadays, even I was last week in Israel and we had a very important meeting of the Ministry of Education and we were talking about new language policy for Israel. And one of the things that came up is this. It's not just about number of languages, but it's about multilingualism and what does it really mean. And linguistic landscape is very heavily included. And then just one last slide, which is kind of funny, because it's a study we're working on now. So now we noticed all of a sudden, as of 6 months ago, all the tourist areas in Israel have Arabic in them. So we wondered, wow, this is like something good, what's happening? So we started interviewing people in the municipality. And they said, what did they say? That no Arabic appears in all signs, but no, I'm sorry. The text, but forget the no. The text overlooked the Arabs who used to live there and still do. So the person tells us multiculturalism is in. It will increase tourism. And therefore we decided to put Arabic. But it's not Arabs that I really want to include. So they overlook the people who live there. They actually put the Arabic, but when you read the content of the sign, there's nothing about Arabs. So what you see in situations in linguistic landscape can be, as I call it, propaganda. Just putting the sign there, but it doesn't mean much. And I think our role is, when we talk about linguistic landscape, is to look at it in a much deeper way than just, oh, I have a sign in this language, and now I can go home and relax. So that's what I have to say. Everything is published. You can, or not everything, but most of the studies, and you can read them, and I can refer you to them, and so on. But just to tell you in general that this whole field is very vibrant. There's a new journal called Linguistic Landscape now, conference, Linguistic Landscape 7, lots of other sessions, and so on. And if you are attracted to this, please be in touch with us and with me and others, and you'll find a place where a new domain comes into your mind. Thank you.
There's some data that are elicited, some data are naturally occurring, right? I mean, even if people like me who look at discourse interaction, if there are two different kinds of data sources. Well, with this kind of work, everything would have to be naturally occurring, right? But then what are methodological-wise, right, in terms of methodology, what kinds of things that need to be brought to bear on the interpretation of the signs that we identify and collect as our database? Would you like to make some comments?
I would say one thing, that in the early study, the one I showed you with the statistics, with the graph. Remember the one I showed you with the graph at the beginning? That was one of the early studies, not only because it's early, but because people used to do very quantitative studies. And quantitative studies, we found, don't go to the depth of what linguistic landscape is. Maybe we didn't do it right, but we find that it misses a lot of information. So you get to know which languages are there, or which languages come first, or what, you know. But it's important perhaps to know for statistical reasons, but we didn't find that it really touches the depth of the kind of messages, the content of the thing. So I would say most of the work today is totally interpretive, qualitative kind of data. What we have is like a lot of work is done with interviews with people. There's new work, I mentioned it to you today, that people are looking even in neurostudies, neurolinguistic studies, on how the environment affects what we think. I mean, I think this is a very important route that the field will be going, because both in psychology and in applied linguistics as well, people are looking more into what is it out there that, how do we make sense and from the environment. In other words, some of the work we've been hearing is about how there's no way in psychology today. My daughter works in memory, so she gave a talk just recently, and one of the things, she teaches in Colombia, and one of the things they're talking about, she says that memory was never something that was in the context. In a way, people looked at science as this, but did not try to connect it to broader sense. And I think what she's saying, that lots of work that's happening now in cognitive neuroscience is really about how we make sense in a broader way, and not just from those little tasks that we see many times in these studies. So I would say that may be one direction, but I would say most of the studies, the serious studies, I think, are more ethnographic in the sense that you have pictures and movements. You see like studies on immigration, and you see, but on the other hand, you have a study like in Mandela, after the apartheid. So you have a study where people are counting. How many signs do we have in Afrikaans or other language? Or how did the environment change after? So there's the new issue, there's lots of papers showing that both qualitative and quantitative have to be included, as long as we have good theory. So if this, I would say there are lots of methods, but people work a lot with the GoPro, you know, the camera, no? Yeah, the camera, the video camera. There's lots and lots of work now on not just the stills, but in terms of how people react to situations in a movement, a dynamic way. There's lots of work now on flowing languages from one place to another, you know, flowing. Mobility of languages. Jan Blomer talks a lot about that, and how different places interpret languages in different ways. So I would say everywhere, every method probably is, but people look down now at studies which count. Yeah.
Just to comment on the counting study, I mean, to me it was that one counting study that you showed was so amazing.
Amazing.
And, yeah, and it's amazing in part because the advantage of counting studies is that they can tell you things that you weren't looking for.
Yes.
In a way that qualitative work, you know, it's much harder in qualitative work to surprise yourself.
Yeah.
And I think just in terms of legitimating a field, the quantitative studies really are, you know, you still need them.
Yeah, okay. That's a good example. We didn't know at all that when it comes to science, this is what's happening, and we didn't know at all that based on this sign we can declare linguistic language as a separate field, for example. So yeah, it's different what you find. But people are sick of counting stores and counting,
you know. Madame Curie counted for how many years? That's all she did. She just counted until she finally had enough radium.
Yeah.
And it was very boring work.
But radium doesn't talk. Sorry, Mark.
But if you look at the study where the person talks about buildings, and they bring in their whole history about the place, that is really the important findings. or where the kids go on comparing. They counted too, the 10 signs, the kids, but the simple conclusions are not enough. I mean, the important thing was what they felt about it. So that's an example of a mixed method in a way. And kids, I would agree with kids and high school children and the principals, they love the counting because like at the beginning it gives them a sense of what's happening here. So it varies, but I just wanted to show you that. And also lots of historical studies, lots, about how they used in history, even in the Greek era, how they used signs in different places, how there's a wonderful paper by Fulmas about the reading of plaques, and how people would come to the center of the square and they will teach them how to read there. So the whole idea they claim of language and public space is not new at all. And I was in India, in many places in India you don't see signs. All the signs are pictures because there's a high level of illiteracy. You see somebody pee, they say don't pee here, and they say big X on top of it. So that's also okay. More questions? Yes.
Function is very important. Depending on the function, which is our writing system, which language they use will be very different. And then it's in the area where there are multiple variety of languages, but on the other hand, in a country like Japan, where it is basically monolingual, we use it's not monolingual, but mostly monolingual, but we have 4 different writing systems, Chinese-based and 2 alphabets, hiragana and katakana. One of them is usually used for representing Western items for Western culture, and also we use alphabet, English alphabet. And interestingly, the company's names, earlier most of the company names are written in Chinese characters, but nowadays we have many companies' names that are written in katakana or even alphabet. So for example, Stony, S-O-N-Y, they used to have different companies' names, which was written in Chinese character, but only after Stony was written in English alphabet, it became big company. And Toyota is written in katakana, which is usually for things from Western culture. But
fantastic,
but earlier it was Chinese character. So depending on the purpose, functions, people use different symbols. And even in a country like Japan.
Yeah, there are lots of studies on changes that happen, especially the mixture of English and the local language, the ELF study, the English lingua franca, or English plus other. So you have lots of those. There's a very famous study in Thailand by Tom Hubner about Bangkok. By the way, the first dissertation on linguistic landscape ever by this guy Peter Backhaus was about Tokyo. Yeah, and it's a book. It turned into a book.
Last question.
Thank you. On behalf of our students here, is intercultural communication students, I want to thank you for this wonderful, eye-opening presentation about your research. And I believe we have learned a lot. We will continue the conversation about, your language landscape and policies. What I find is quite interesting, I just want to mention one is, you have the students do the research. So my thinking is, when you have the local residents to do the research about the presence of the languages and about, their identities and also the power, versus if the tourists go to a place, when I say, wow, this is a language I'm familiar with, or I can do that, it's more like just for the convenience. So that would be, I think, it's more interesting if you can do the comparative research on that part too.
Yes, and who are the people who do the research, you're saying, who are the ones, high school is one thing, principals is another thing, by the way, but I think tourists is interesting. I see what you're saying. You're saying it's a problem that students are doing the work for the tourists? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I just want to kind of make a comment because just like I have a student who will continue
to ask the questions. It will be on your weekly discussion definitely for this week. You know, I can gather all the information and present to you. I think it will be, this is my personal finding is, when you give this research, wow, this is quite interesting, but you know, it's one from what perspective when you look at the science, you know. But this is a wonderful topic, and you do the language landscape and the policies, you know, what the policies can, you know, govern this or just accommodate.
Yes.
Yeah, but again, thank you so much for this wonderful.
I want to tell you one thing, I want to tell you something which is totally different group that you won't think that are interested in linguistic language. These are mayors of town. Especially in different towns, you have immigrants from so many countries. Let's say in Italy, in a place near Siena, there are lots of little towns and there are lots of immigrants, many from China and Albania, of course. So the mayors don't know what to do. So they, I want to include them. How do I do it? How do I put signs in the municipal office, city hall, you know, that they will feel welcome? So at the University of Stony in Siena, they organized a special conference for mayors of towns. So think about that linguist, and they showed them how to kind of discuss together with them. How can they make the city more language friendly so they feel more welcome? And they created committees now of people who together come up with these kind of policies which are so important for cities. And whoever thought about it, you know? So there are more stakeholders in that. That's what I wanted to say.